Welcome to the Manifesting Millions podcast, where we talk about manifestation, money, and practical guidance to creating your dream reality. My name is Amy Van Meel, and I am an experienced coach and transformation guide, obsessed with helping you get out of your own way and create a life that blows your mind each day you wake up. My goal in this podcast is to share practical manifestation, self-awareness, and growth techniques in real talk conversations. So if you're ready to massively transform your reality, your finances, your relationships, and your overall enjoyment of life, you are in the right place. I am absolutely delighted that you're here with me today, babe. Let's get into it. Well, hello, my beautiful babes. Welcome back to the podcast. I'm excited to have you here with me, of course. It is a beautiful day here in, I almost said sunny Calgary. It might be a little bit sunny outside today, but we've been getting a lot of snow this week. So yeah, that's where we're at. I want to just tease a little bit. I'm very excited. In a couple of weeks, maybe 3 or so, I'm going to be having a guest on the podcast. I'm very excited about it. I just booked the interview today. So I'm super excited to share the podcast episode with you, and stay tuned. That's all I'm going to share is that it's going to be juicy. It's going to be a great interview, and I'm excited for the conversation. I'm also really excited about today's podcast episode. So we're going to dive into a little bit of etymology today, which I will share with you what that is if you're not familiar with that phrase. And just a quick heads up, if the podcast sounds a little different from time to time over the next few weeks, I've been playing with my microphone placement, my recording settings. I don't have a podcast like headset thing that has the microphone in front of your mouth. I will probably one day get one of those. I understand that they're not super costly. I just am not a fan of having a headset on my head. I never have really been a fan of it, but one day I might go, you know what? The sound quality is truly better if I use a headset, because I think it's a little bit hollow when you're listening to it the way I have it right now. You're getting a little bit of the reverb in the room. I am not enough of a sound engineer to understand how to get rid of that. But you know what? My whole mantra is it's better done than perfect, which is a great segue for today's episode. So today we're going to be talking about the word perfect. Like I said, perfect segue, right? So I was listening to a podcast recently where there was a question asked of the host about becoming the future version of themselves, and revealing that the person who asked the question had a belief that the future version that they were working their way towards was a better version than the present version of this person. I'm going to clarify that just a tiny bit. So like if we're thinking about, we're creating something in our life, we might have this idea that the version of us who has this thing that we want to create already in their lives somehow is better than the version of us that we are today. Now, the host went on to explain that at the root, we're often perceiving our future version, so that version of us who has that dream reality that we've been wanting, doesn't matter whether it's money, the house, the car, the job, the relationship, whatever, as some perfect version of us, a version of us who seems to have it all figured out. And it was noted that we have this perception that version is often driven from a place of perfectionism, and how exactly that view is what gets in the way. And moreover, that perfectionism itself is actually unattainable because it's the lowest frequency we can embody, and that keeps us stuck. Now, this was a really interesting perspective shift for me, but I've also been really digging recently into the etymology of words, and I am loving what I am learning. So if you're not familiar, etymology is the origin of words or the root of words. And it's quickly becoming one of my favorite ways to shift beliefs and patterns and habits in my life. I pepper a lot of the etymology of words in the Building Vampires program. which I will be telling you more about later on. So I looked up the word perfect because I was very curious what the root of perfect actually is. So perfect comes from two Latin words, specifically per and facere. I may not be saying that correctly, but it's my podcast, and that's how I'm going to say it. So per means through or completely, and facere means do. So if you follow the root tree, the word moves to perfectus, which just means completed. Now I want you to catch this. The root of the word perfect means do through or do completely, or if you use perfectus, it means completed. Now in our current definition, perfect means to make something completely free from faults or defects, or as close to such a condition as possible, or having all the required or desirable elements, qualities, or characteristics. It is as good as it is possible to be. That's our current definition. Now, I don't know how we moved from the root of do completely to completely free of faults or defects. And I don't care. That's not what this podcast episode is about. You're not like, oh God, Amy, we're going to go into the whole root history of words. No, that's not what we're talking about today. What I want to talk about today is how we can use this lesson in etymology to shift our understanding of perfect. Now, to be clear, I don't want you to walk away from this episode thinking Amy tells me that perfection is attainable and that that's what I should be striving for. If that's where we land at the end of this episode, I have failed at communicating, and that is not good. But what I have found is a very powerful tool that I use more and more often is to dig into the root of the word and then apply what I learned to shift my perspective and align my brain with the version of me that I'm creating. So here's what I mean. If I'm operating with a current definition of perfect, where the thing in question exists with zero fault or defect, well, that is indeed impossible. Plus, can we just say how boring that would be? Humans are not perfect creatures. We are by nature imperfect, and we celebrate and marvel at the imperfections that exist in nature. However, we've been led to believe that we need to strive for perfection and that anything less is an absolute failure. Now, don't get me started on this whole ridiculous zero-sum, completely black and white perspective of things, all right? However, if we shift our operating system to replace the definition of perfect with do through or do completely, and we release all the qualifiers. So for example, we don't go do through without flaws or do completely with no faults or defects. Well, if we go just with do through or do completely, then we can begin to play with what we've been programmed to believe and shift our reality to close the gap between our current reality and our dream reality, which is what we're trying to do anyway, right? So let me explain this a bit further. When I was creating the Manifest More Money with Ease expansion bundle, the version of me from 5 years ago would have spent weeks trying to make sure that everything was without fault or defect, because I was operating with the old definition of perfect, which is actually the current definition, but I'm going to expand on using old in a minute. Now, in fact, 5 years ago, Amy would have potentially been trying so hard to achieve perfection that she never would have shipped the download, and it would only exist in multiple files on her computer. Current Amy, however, has done the work of decoupling perfectionism from her drive and now barely ever uses perfect or perfection in her vocabulary. Instead, I've adopted the root meaning of perfect, which is to do through or do completely. So while I had a clear idea of how in-depth I wanted the expansion bundle to be, I didn't waste time making sure that completely unrelated things were just so. For example, when I filmed the EFT video, I didn't first completely change my office, make sure that everything looked like some super high-end studio. I didn't change my outfit 14 times or try to make sure I was speaking and moving like a polished television personality. Instead, I sat down and I just did the thing. And when each part of the bundle was done, I'd review it to make sure that it made sense and it would be effective, and then I moved on. The difference is that instead of weeks or months of creation, I spent 4 days working on it a little bit at a time, and I set up a simple download page so you can get your hands on the information now. Now, if you're curious, stay with me because I'll tell you more about the bundle and how you can get your hands on it. But let me first come back to the note on using the word old to describe the definition of perfect. So our subconscious mind is always tuned in to what we are saying, doing, and thinking. The words we say, the thoughts we think, the things we do, these all tell the subconscious mind what we deem as important, and they shape our beliefs, which shapes our lived reality. Now, a few weeks ago, I was in a session with my coach, and I was trying to describe 2 different states of being. One, which was a thought or pattern that had historically always been true for me, and one, which was the updated version that I was working on. Now, I was struggling for the best words to describe what I was trying to describe without telling my coach and my subconscious mind about this state of being that I no longer wanted in my life. And my coach explained that by using the word old, it tells our subconscious that this no longer applies to us. So for example, I might say, the old pattern for me was to open my bank account and feel stress, anxiety, or fear. Now I feel relatively neutral, like the charge is gone. Versus saying, when I opened up my bank account, I would feel stressed, anxious, and fearful, right? That second version is really like being still just describing the thing. Now, it might seem like ultra specific semantics, and you might be wondering, is it really so important to be so specific in our words? Are we maybe just trying a little bit too hard? Doesn't our subconscious mind know what we're trying to say? I want to try something together, all right? And hopefully you'll piece the pieces together here once we do. I want you to not think of a blue tree. Don't think of it. Don't think of a blue tree. Don't think about a pink elephant. Don't do it. Don't think of a pink elephant. What happened? You probably thought of or saw in your mind a blue tree and a pink elephant, right? The subconscious mind does not process negatives. So it doesn't hear no, not, do not, etc. So when we say, don't think of a blue tree, it must first think of the blue tree in order to move on to the next thing. So if I'm describing a situation where I was experiencing a pattern of stress or fear, and I'm not mindful of the language of the subconscious mind, then I could actually be reaffirming to the subconscious that I want more stress and fear around my finances. The subconscious mind does, however, understand old and understands that that is now no longer applicable. So give it a try. Think of a habit or a belief in your life that you've been wanting to shift. For example, perhaps you've always been told that in order to make more money, you need to work harder and longer hours. Now, logically, you know that may not be true, but logic doesn't apply to your subconscious. So when you think of your desire to create more money in your life, the moment your mind chirps up with that belief that says, okay, but in order to make more money, I need to work harder or longer, I want you to try saying out loud, oh, look at that old belief. Boy, that's old. That doesn't apply to me because it really is an old belief. My belief is that money increases in my life every day with ease. Give that a try. Now, it's not going to shift it by saying it one time, right? On the one hand, it feels like that'd be really great. And we'd be like, oh my God, I said it one time and I fixed it. But like, always think of the inverse, that if you just said something one time and it completely changed your life, that would also be exhausting and not necessarily great. However, what is important to know is that as you interrupt the thought pattern that keeps you stuck in old thinking, and you tell your subconscious that the pattern or belief no longer applies to you, and then you tell it what does apply to you, your belief systems will begin to shift. Now, here is where my work and yours comes to a really great intersection. The money expansion bundle that I've created is loaded with highly effective tools to help you shift your money mindset and expand the money that you experience in your life with as little effort as possible. In fact, in some cases, it's literally as simple as putting on headphones and pushing play, listening to a subliminal while you do your work, while you wash the dishes, while you ride the bike, while you go for a walk, while you do basically anything other than operate heavy machinery. So if you've been trying to shift your money reality, or you're desiring to just make money easier in your life, to be more fun, to bring more of it into your life without adding on miles and miles of tasks and work, then this expansion bundle is for you. So inside the free download, I have put together this amazing bundle all about manifesting more money with ease. And inside, you'll get 33 money expanding affirmations, 5 phone wallpapers, 3 subliminal audio tracks, a limiting belief tracker. This one is super easy to use because who has time for complicated trackers? I know I sure don't. A money expanding mind movie. Literally, you just press play and it will help shift your beliefs. Plus a guided emotional freedom techniques or tapping video designed to release and remove limiting beliefs holding you back from creating more money in your life effortlessly. And then a guide to help you understand the tools as well as when and how to use them. And the best part is it's 100% free. Now, when I shared with my coach what I put into this bundle, she laughed and she said, so you basically created a mini course to create massive changes, which is, pretty much exactly what it is. It's so full of goodness, this bundle, that I probably should be charging for it, but I'm not. You're getting it completely free. So if you want to get the bundle and really start shifting your money mindset right away, easily and effortlessly, go to amyvanmeel.com/manifest money, and you'll get your expansion bundle ASAP. I will, of course, put the URL into the show notes, but again, that's amyvanmeel.com/manifest money, and you'll get your expansion bundle completely free. You can start shifting your money mindset instantly. All right, now one last thing before we close out this episode. I lost my notes. Here I am. Sorry about that, babes. One last thing before we close out this episode. At the start of this episode, I mentioned that I learned that perfection is actually the lowest frequency we can strive for, and that it is unattainable. Now, I want to dig into that lowest frequency part a bit because it definitely took me some time to understand and integrate that. My logical brain wanted very much to say, no, it's unattainable because it's the highest frequency, not the lowest frequency. So I'm going to explain this by talking about love. Love is the highest frequency. Every spiritual teacher I've ever heard or read talks about love as our highest state, and about how in their most open and enlightened states, they experienced pure love, all-encompassing love, love for everyone and everything. So if you think about someone or something that you love in your life, I'm going to talk about my husband. I am daily amazed at just how much I love him, and that somehow it seems to grow deeper and wider every day. When I think of him, I feel love. When I share time with him, I feel love. When I speak to him, or I hear a voicemail he's left me, or I read a text message he sent me, I feel love. Love is the highest frequency. Perfection has nothing to do with it. He's not perfect. I'm not perfect. And in fact, it is our flaws, which I'm putting permanently in air quotes, that make us interesting, that keeps things fresh, and at times grows our love and our understanding of one another. When I created the money expansion bundle, I didn't do it with 0 flaws. I guarantee that you'll find flaws in there if you're looking for them. And that really is the heart of perfection. It is a constant pursuit to find and eliminate flaws. Now, really, the only way to do that is to remove more and more and more until you're left with the most basic unit. If every combination of elements creates something that could be perceived as a flaw, the only way to remove that chance of perception that something's wrong is to go to the base element. And since all of life is carbon-based, I guess the only thing that we might consider perfect is carbon? Who knows? Now, while carbon has a beauty all of its own, we don't look at a pile of pure carbon and think, there it is, perfection. When we think about our desired reality, if we're constantly striving for our life to be perfect, then what we're telling our subconscious is to continually scan the environment around us and report all flaws. Because after all, if we believe that perfection is the absence of flaws, and we believe that our dream life will be perfection, then it must mean that our dream life has no flaws. So how much would you need to remove from your dream life in order to make sure it has no possible flaws? What if instead we agree to stop chasing the without fault or flaw perfection and shift our understanding of perfection to done through? If we do that, we can let go of this constant scanning for errors that are telling us that we're still not there yet. And instead, we can see all the ways in which it is done. I have the most amazing relationship with my husband. My dream has very much come true, and it has done so while exceeding every single expectation or reality I thought possible. All I see, all I feel is love. Love for him, love all around us, love done through. And with that, babe, I am going to leave you here. I wish you an amazing week ahead. Thank you so much for joining me on the podcast, and I look forward to seeing you next time. Bye for now. Thank you so much for tuning in to today's episode. If you loved what you heard today, be sure to share it with me by leaving a review on your favorite podcast platform and help me reach more like-minded people who are ready to expand their life. If you haven't yet followed me on social media, find me on Instagram for extra love and inspiration by following @AmyVanMeal or visit my website at amyvanmeal.com. I love you so much, babe, and I am damn proud of you. I am already excited to connect in the next episode. And in the meantime, believe in yourself with the confidence of a 5-year-old.